Well, our next candidate who's standing for a position on the Legislative Council is Andy Hardy, who joins us here. Andy, you've also had the chance of having your hustings, so people can now see that on Friday. I've asked people how you found that, because it was all you guys and then the MHK, some MLCs. Was it you're a businessman? Is that something you deal with all the time, or was it quite tricky?
Yeah, I've got to be honest. It was a little bit of a different scenario. It's not often you sit down and answer questions in a run of 8. I think that was the hardest thing, to be brutally honest. The actual experience was, it was all right, to tell you the truth. I think it was literally, I think the hardest thing, if somebody asked a question and then it came down the line, a lot of the people before might have said the same thing.
Sure. So
you're already you don't want to replicate somebody else's answer, but if it's kind of how you feel, okay, there's things in there. So it's you're sort of searching for stuff.
I'll keep it. These are all for you, so we don't.
Right, okay.
Why did you want to do it? Because I asked everyone that. Why do you think you fill this position in your head?
To be honest, I think when I was younger, if I'd have known the influence and the power that kind of politicians have, and how much influence they have on your life and day-to-day experiences as such, then I think I'd have probably got into politics more, rather than just kind of riding my bike and playing football and chasing around. But it's only when you become older that, especially as a businessman, you understand the ramifications of the decisions that are made on your behalf. So my grandfather was chairman of Lincolnshire County Council. My wife's grandfather was Clifford Irving, who was a very well-respected politician over here for a long time. So politics is something that we talk about a lot, and it's something I've mentioned countless times in the past.
So why not an MHK route? Why go for this route?
Because my life as it stands at this minute in time, I have a lot of commitments. I have obviously set up a lot of businesses over time. I've got nearly 70 people that work for me. I have obviously obligations to the people that I'm in business with. So I think that from an MHK, the difference is, in my opinion, when I look at it, MHKs are effectively, they're elected by the people to represent the people. So there is a hell of a lot more responsibility. And that's not saying that the MLC role isn't hugely responsible, because obviously it is. But I think the delineation between them being elected by the people, ergo they can make the decisions on the behalf of the people, whereas we primarily, if I'm fortunate enough to get into that position, we're almost like a check in terms of the things are presented to us, and then it's a group of people with experience and knowledge and different backgrounds who then view these things that are presented to us, the bills or the policies, and then you obviously make sure that they're kind of fit for purpose and the best that they possibly can be.
How do you describe yourself at the minute? I mean, a publican, you also own coffee shops. I mean,
I don't own coffee shops anymore.
Well, you did.
No,
yeah.
No, I had obviously at one point I had 5. I had Bradder Glen.
How do you describe yourself? As a businessman or as a landlord of a pub?
Just
chap who's trying to make
it. Yeah, excuse me, just a chap who's trying to make his way through life, sort of thing. So,
but you're not bidding this. Then, if you got in, you'd continue doing your day job and this job.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that's been kind of thrown at me in the past, and I think obviously anyone who works for themselves or anyone who's self-employed understands that you need to manage your time carefully, and you need to apply yourself as and when. And when you're self-employed, it is crazy busy. I mean, I didn't have a day off in 9 months when I did the courthouse, and when I designed and project managed and built the courthouse, I was also running Bradder Glen and looking after the Alpines. So I'm used to being very kind of full on, and I honestly think, to be brutally honest, that's kind of when you do your best work. When you are challenged and when you are tested, and this is something that I'm hugely interested in. I see this island as it's just incredible. I've been here 16 years now, and because I think I'm not from the Isle of Man, I see the opportunities that it has, and I think that where we are politically at this minute in time, obviously with Brexit going on and all the rest of the things that are occurring, this is a massive time of change. Everything's going on. Liz Vane report's going through. Things are changing, and I think that what I would bring to the table is the kind of viewpoint of someone who's been through business, who's made decisions, and I've done very well, but I've also lost everything. I had a very messy divorce. I lost lots of businesses, and I kind of, I did the right thing. I didn't bankrupt myself. I paid my way out of it. I'm very, very conscious that you apply yourself and you do the best that you can in every role. So for me, I think it is possible to balance it. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of reading.
But it could be £50,000 if you get onto some board as well. I mean, is that just side money to you? I mean, it's not pin money.
Because that's ridiculous.
Is your main work still outside? And
this will be. I think it took me nearly 4.5 years to pay off, obviously, the debts from before, kind of thing. But I did that, and I did the right And I genuinely think that's correct. So I'm slowly building my way up again. So obviously the money is important, and I'm not going to lie about that. I don't think that MLC should have expenses. I've been asked this question before, and I know this is something that's going through at this minute in time. So the MHK role is far more demanding, in my opinion, and so they need expenses. I don't understand why MLCs should have an expense account. That to me is incorrect.
But you must be one of the only ones that says they will continue their day job. I'm just trying to get this because you standing out, I think, from the crowd. Because I think so far, anyway, most people said, "Oh no, this will be a full-time position." You're going to do a lot of juggling, right?
Yeah, well, that's life. You know, I've got 5 kids. I've got like all sorts going on. So you know, we got a very, very busy life. But I'm also one for looking at opportunities. And to me, politics is something. You know, I don't understand how you kind of can't be interested in politics, and it's something again that kind of crept up on me over the last sort of few years, and it's something that, you know, I genuinely feel, and this isn't some kind of egotistical thing, but I think politics really, you know, as I say, it changes and it shapes everything, but I think fundamentally those decisions need to be based on experience, and I think that you need to have people from different backgrounds. So I think that, you know, finance needs to be represented, I think charity sector, I think legally, but then I think there also needs to be an element of common sense, and I'm 47 years old and common sense ain't common. It really isn't. It's one of those things that you kind of learn with experience, and the ability to talk to people and to view issues and problems and do the research and come at it from a different point of view, and I think that's what I could bring.
Did you know much about what an MLC did before you decided to stand? Had you gone and watched them in action? Had you been to Tynwald, for instance? You say you're interested in politics, but how interested were you?
I think, you know, to be honest, I thought an MLC, to be brutally honest, it was a bit like the House of Lords. I thought it was almost where MHK's kind of sort of went to, you know, after. I didn't fully understand the role, and I think, again, that's the problem with perception on the Isle of Man, and that's not just here. I think you ask anyone in England what the House of Lords do, the majority of them haven't got a clue. But with, obviously, the situation that's going on in America and everything that's going on in Europe at this minute in time, politics is in the fore. It's this shifting sand of land that's just moving.
Okay. And the future of it, do you see it just being voted on by MHK as the future, or would you like to be open up to the public voting for it, or would you disbanding it? Or
I think the Nominations Commission is a good idea. I think that's a very, very good idea, to be brutally honest, because I came to this very late. I've literally, I came on board, I think it was probably just over 2 weeks ago. So this is something that I genuinely...
Does some come to you, or you go to the proposer?
No. It sounds ridiculous, but I read an article, and I think it was the Chief Minister saying about looking for diversity and looking for people from different backgrounds, and I was like, oh my God, that's me. And it literally was a light bulb moment, and I thought, you know what? This is, you know, put your money where your mouth is, get involved, try and make a difference. So I then went and hustled like all the MHKs pretty much constantly. And the hard thing was, you know, 50% of them were already fully committed. And that's my fault. That's not their fault. That was the timescale.
Okay.
I know some of the other people have been on this for like 10 to 12 weeks now.
Which department would you like to go into if you had an option? Where do you think your skills could be most well served?
This is a difficult one again, because the question is, do you go on to a department? And I genuinely feel that an MLC's role should be to review and to be impartial and to be objective. And I think if you're working for a department and you've vested time and effort and everything into everything that you're trying to push through, whatever's being presented to you, you can't be unbiased with that. You've got a vested interest in it. You obviously want that to work. So I think, you know, a non-exec kind of board position or something like that would be far more sort of appropriate than actually working for a department, because there has to be a conflict of interest there. If you're invested in pushing something through, how can you then step away and review that objectively? That's my opinion. There should be clear delineation between the two, and it is down to the fact that MHKs are elected by the people. The constituents have looked at that person, their skill set, their background, their knowledge, and they've put them in that role for that position. MLCs are put in a position so that you have a disparate group of people with different backgrounds and different viewpoints who then look at what's presented by the MHKs, and it's like a check. It's like it's like, you know yourself when you're doing a body of work, sometimes you're so deep in it you can't see it. So you need someone to look at it and think, oh my God, what about that? That's where we come in, if I'm fortunate enough to get the role.
How do you think it went for you? I mean, do you feel confident?
It's a learning curve. Life is a learning curve, and it's like I've been, you know, it was quite heavy to be presented with these things, and I've been studying like crazy.
Yeah. Elizabeth report, you read all that like everyone else has done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, there's some valid points in there. I think some of them are very sort of valid, but it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because politics is changing, especially on the Isle of Man. To invite someone in from outside to look at the system of Tynwald and say, what's your thoughts on it?
And do you see it as revising only, or would you want to put your tuppence worth in and propose some changes to laws?
I think that, to be honest, I think that we should look at things that are presented to us. And I understand that we have or when I say we, again, this is like not presuming, because I would never presume that I would get into that role. That's just an easy way to talk about my thoughts about the role. So I genuinely think that they can halt things. They can't block them, but they can halt them. And in doing a halting process, if there's something in there that doesn't feel right, you can look to make amendments. So you can propose to, what about this? And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that you should be able to look at a body of work and say, okay, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What's your views on this? Why did you make that decision? That's healthy. I mean, fundamentally, everybody wants the Isle of Man to maximise its potential and to make the right decisions and to look at the future, because this is a time of opportunity for us. I genuinely feel with Brexit coming up and the businesses that are relocating to the island and the quality of life and everything that there is on this island, it's a little gold mine. It's got loads of potential.
And again, it sounds like there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. How much time can you commit to it? I have to ask you this because people.
Well, I mean,
do you see 1 day a week or certain hours a week, or how do you?
It's nothing specific like that. Life, there's 24 hours in a day. You choose how to spend that time. I am fortunate that obviously because I run the courthouse, which is my primary only sort of draw, I do have commitments there. I've got people that I'm in bed with the business in terms of the responsibilities. I've invested 10 years of my life into that, but the perks of being the boss is that there is a certain amount of flexibility when I need to work. I will, on a Saturday night, I'm there till 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday because it's the busiest time. That's when the business needs me. So you'll see me pegging it around in the restaurant and clearing tables and working on the bar and on the door, and that's because that's
Well, I've
important.
known you do that in the past.
Exactly.
Clearly, I've
well,
seen
I've
you
done
do
that, for 16 years, so I'm very, very hands-on, and I don't have any sort of delusions of grandeur. But I am very aware that this is a massive honour, and this is hugely important. So if I have to research documents and read papers and go through bills, I can do that in the evening, or I can do that in the day, or I can do it. But I'm not going to say I'm not committed, because I have got commitments there. But
if this doesn't work out this time, would you still feel that urge to put yourself forward in 2 years' time? Is this something you want to pursue?
My brain is buzzing now. I am absolutely loving this experience. I think that if you don't grow as a person and you don't challenge yourself, then you're kind of missing out on life. So for me, this is something really important. I've talked about it loads of times, and I remember years and years ago speaking to my father about it in England, and he was like, oh, well, if you were in England, which party would you bloody, because he's a Yorkshireman, and he's like, you've got to join with a party. And the beauty of the Isle of Man is the majority of it is independence. So we are in a position whereby you can change quicker, and these people are independent, ergo they are being elected because of who they are and what they are. So this whole process and learning how Tynwald works and how the House of Keys is and all the different processes that are involved, it has ignited a spark in me. At this minute in time, I couldn't commit to an MHK role because of the responsibilities that I have in place. And I know that is far more demanding. And because you are elected by the people, I think the time constraints that the MHKs have is far more demanding. And that is not to belittle the MLC role, because it isn't, but it is a very different role. It is a different role.